Welcome back to Hunting the Haunted here on the Paranormal Network, where we dissect and discuss alleged accounts of paranormal activity, hauntings, and ghost stories from around the globe. I am your co-host, Jason Hewlett.
And I'm Peter Renn, and because this episode comes out on October 31st, we're talking our favourite holiday, our Christmas actually, Halloween.
Thank you all for watching Hunting the Haunted, and I ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell, notified each time a new video goes up. Now back to the show. Halloween, also known as All Halloween, All Hallow Eve, and All Saints Eve, is a celebration dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, martyrs, and all other departed. Many believe its traditions were influenced by Celtic harvest festivals, especially the Gaelic festival of Samhain, not Samhain, Samhain. Some go even further and suggest Samhain may have been Christianized as All Hallows Day along with Eve by the early church. There are even academics who believe Halloween began solely as a Christian holiday. Regardless, it's been celebrated in Ireland and Scotland for centuries, and Irish and Scottish migrants brought many Halloween customs to North America in the 19th century. Through American influence and arguably a popular horror franchise, Halloween spread to other countries by the late 20th and 21st century. Peter, you come from the old country. How big was Halloween back in England, and what do you know of its origins?
In Britain generally, including obviously Northern Ireland, it's not celebrated as what it is in North America. We never, it was never our Christmas or anything like, which ideally it would like to have been. The only, where I grew up around South London and stuff like that, it was always a kind of a night where we just turned all the lights off, because it was never truly represented in a joyful night, because it was just an excuse for young kids like yobs to get dressed up and just put a mask on and, knock on someone's door, and the pretense is that they say, treat, and then they give them a treat, and then they turn around and they throw eggs at people's houses. Or so in some particular cases, they used to throw bricks through people's windows and stuff like that. Bearing in mind of the area I come from. In relation to the celebrations, it wasn't, because the origins were actually, it was kind of from a pagan descent. It was never really truly celebrated in England and parts of Northern England as well. And I think that unless you're kind of, a Wiccan or, you follow that kind of religion, that's when it's truly celebrated. But then again, with, the influence of the Catholic Church and obviously the Church of England, Church of Scotland, stuff like that, it's kind of, even that piece is probably shunned upon, even in modern times.
Interesting stuff. I know I lived in Australia back in the 90s, and they didn't celebrate it at all. They didn't even acknowledge it. It's recognised out in Australia, and it was in New Zealand as well. But it's more, like I say, it was more kind of it was more of a negative light on it, because of the fact that even when I was living in Australia and New Zealand, it was more associated with yobs going out and putting their hoodies up, putting a mask on, and just giving them an excuse to throw eggs or throw things at people's houses and stuff like that, which is kind of sad, but it was the reality of where I grew up and where I lived. And for those of us who don't know what a yob is, what's a yob, Peter?
Young obscene boy.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, young obscene boy. Or something
we
like
have
that.
Lots of those here too in Canada.
Yeah.
Halloween, of course, has its popular symbols, and it's interesting to see how they develop. The jack-o'-lantern was traditionally carried by children going door to door in costume as a means of frightening away evil spirits. There's also a popular Irish Christian folktale associated with the jack-o'-lantern, which in folklore is said to represent a soul denied entry into both heaven and hell.
In Ireland and Scotland, the turnip has traditionally been carved during Halloween, but immigrants to North America use a native pumpkin, which is both much softer and much larger, making it easier to carve than a turnip. The American tradition of carving pumpkins is recorded in 1837 and was originally associated with harvest time in general, not becoming specifically associated with Halloween until the mid to late 19th century.
Modern imagery of Halloween comes from many sources, including historical Christian customs and works of Gothic and horror literature like Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. Skulls serve as a reminder of death and the transitory quality of life. Elements of autumn like pumpkins, corn husks, and scarecrows have also been prevalent, with homes decorated in these types of symbols around Halloween. Now, when it comes to trick-or-treating, we already alluded to how that started as a tradition in Ireland and Scotland, didn't we, Peter? How do you know of tricks or treats origins? Like, you guys didn't really do that back home, you were saying?
No, like I said, it was more kind of associated with more the negative side of Halloween. Trick-or-treating was done by like teenagers, but it was generally more alluded to the trick rather than the tree. There was occasionally where, it was associated with young kids going around dressing up in masks, but that was in kind of more private areas of where we used to live more than the open spaces that we had around South London.
All right, now the history lesson is all well and good, but what about the ghosts? This is a show about ghosts and hauntings. Ghosts are a popular Halloween image and costume, but what about real life ghosts on Halloween? There is a belief that on this day, the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, and spirits are free to roam the earth. From a paranormal investigator standpoint, Peter, does this belief actually hold true?
Hang on, let me think about that one. My brain's trying to process what you just said. In relation to the paranormal and how activity transpires, typically or historically, generally things do come, like we get more cases as paranormal investigators around this time of year. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But it tends to be more shunned upon the fact that people are watching the horror movies and they're getting into kind of the groove of potentially things that would be deemed as being normal is now paranormal. So things like heating and stuff like that. And generally a lot of the cases that I've had over recent years have been to that effect, where it's just been an overactive imagination. There might be something in it in relation to other investigators, but there's never been any real rhythm to cases transpiring apart from natural reasons more than a particular time of the year.
See, that's a point I was going to ask you about, which you kind of answered that question. It's kind of like people at this time of year are more willing or even wanting something spooky to happen opposed to other times of the year.
Yeah, and it's not I'm not saying that people making things up or anything like that, but they tend to have more of an overactive imagination this time of year because they're in that spirit of, pardon the pun, of Halloween and being spooky.
Now, there was a broadcast on the BBC back in the United Kingdom called Ghostwatch, which aired on Halloween night in 1992. It's a mockumentary loosely based on the Enfield haunting, which featured real BBC personalities like Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, and Craig Charles of Red Dwarf fame. And apparently it fooled so many people that it created a real controversy, almost on the level of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast on Halloween in 1938. Now, I know we've talked about this. I've watched Ghostwatch, and I think you actually watched it when it first aired, right, Peter?
I was 14 years old, and I was over a friend's house, and there was no portrayal on the media before it came out that it was fiction or anything like that, and it was going to be a fly on the wall kind of documentary about alleged haunting and stuff like that. But I'll be honest with you, at that age and the friend's house I was staying at as well, both me and my friend was scared shitless. We were at one point when I think, recall correctly, there was like a banging on the radiator and the girl turned around that was tied to the handcuffed to the radio, and she turned around and she put on like a demonic voice.
Stop it!
I couldn't even move off my friend's couch, and what was funny about it, and I look back, it wasn't funny at the time, but at the time when we heard on the TV the banging on the radio, his dad was watching it upstairs, and he started banging on the floor, so that made it 10 times worse for everyone. I think my friend left a little package on the couch as well. It was very memorable, and then I remember going home and obviously my mum and dad, talking to my mum and dad about it, and then it came out in the media that it was actually it was just a show. It was it was, you know, it was all fake, and it was like the actors, and there was a script as well, which kind of helped. But what I understand as well, that there was a negative side of it as well. I believe that they had numerous amounts of complaints from general public, and I believe as well that there was someone that actually took their life in result to the show as well.
That's what I heard doing my research. Apparently, the BBC was besieged with 30,000 phone calls from irate and frightened viewers, including Parkinson's elderly mother, because there's a sequence at the end where he apparently gets possessed.
Round and round the garden, like a teddy bear.
Yeah. British tabloids and other newspapers criticized them for the disturbing nature of some of those scenes, which, I mean, includes Sarah Green's final scene where she's locked in the understairs cupboard with the howling ghost, Parkinson's eerie possession scene. I spent decades trying to track down a copy of this, Peter, and I watch it regularly. It's awesome.
And it is awesome, and it was very well done. But what was very unique about that piece, when it was televised in England, the UK, there was the BBC had a guideline called the 9 o'clock watershed, where it was anything that went above and beyond 9 o'clock at night, after the 9 o'clock news on BBC, was an adult kind of rating. But this show came out, I believe it was televised at around about 8 o'clock, where all the kids were still up and stuff like that. So that made it even worse for everyone as well, because it wasn't past that threshold.
Wow. It would have been something to see, like when it actually, because we heard about it over here in Canada even. It made such a stir. Yeah. We heard about it in Canada. I remember in like November 1st of 92 hearing about it, and it took me like 20 years to find a decent copy of it to watch over here on my own.
Well, what was more convincing about that show more than anything else is Michael Parkinson is a TV celebrity, and he does like chat shows, and he's done a couple of documentaries like in the past as well, that factual documentaries. And because he was a part of it, and I mean, Sarah Green was she did a lot of children's TV shows and stuff like that, and they both kind of added to that. You know, they solidified the fact in our eyes that was actually real because of the TV presenters. I mean, obviously, when you've got the guy from Red Dwarf there as well, that kind of brings it down a couple of notches. But yeah, Michael Parkinson's a solid face of media back in the UK. Well, he was during that time, and it made it more convincing for everyone.
Now, do you think that had, like, say, Ghostwatch or even the War of the Worlds radio drama not aired on Halloween, but at another time, people would have bought into it as much?
I think I would have thought that generally in modern days, I guess not, but to my understanding in the UK that 9 o'clock watershed still goes on. I still think that there would be people legitimately convinced that this is real on the pretenses if they televised it before 9 o'clock. If it was done after that, generally no, because, you know, it would be a different audience. It should be a different audience. And I think it would probably be a different story. I think it's all about what time it was televised rather than what the documentary actually contained.
Interesting. Now, I know I've always wanted some ghost or boogeyman to pop out and scare the crap out of me on Halloween, Peter, but so far I haven't really. I tend to encounter them when we go out and do our thing. Do you have any good ghost stories to tell that happened to you on Halloween at all? Yes.
So about 12 years ago, before we before I started doing fundraising for non-profit societies and stuff like that around Halloween. We did an investigation in the Lower Mainland of BC, and it was the day before Halloween, and I didn't have kids at that time or anything like that, so there was no reason for me to be home around that time. And it was a house in the middle of this plot of land down in Abbotsford, and we went there numerous times, and there was absolutely no activity there whatsoever. And this guy was adamant that every time we left, things would happen, and there was noises, and there seemed to be a lot of focus around children for some reason. And we looked at the origins of the land and couldn't find anything that was going on there. The only thing we could possibly associate with was that there was a school about half a kilometre up that was demolished back in the mid 19th century. So anyway, it was the day before Halloween, and we went back to this place again, did another investigation. Nothing really stood out. It was just like, okay, let's call it a night, and I'll get back to the client and just relay once we've gone through our footage and evidence, our footage, to see whether there is any evidence, whether his place is actually active or not. But anyway, on the pretenses of it, being a blown out case or anything like that, both me and another investigator walked out the door, and he was like literally carrying our bags out with all the cameras and stuff like that. And Scott, the guy who was with me, he walked away, started putting things into my car. And just as I got out the door of the place, I just said, "Okay, we know you're here, and we're going to leave you be now." And just as I walked away and got onto the front step, you could hear a child laughing, and it was a kind of ha ha ha, kind of sarcastic, kind of "I got you" kind of laugh. And there was no one in the house. And Scott actually heard it as well, and he was actually putting stuff in the back of my car as well. So that,
wow,
it was kind of a proverbial middle finger as we were walking away from the case and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a Halloween thing, and it was generally associated with that particular case.
And it was a creepy kid laughing.
It was a really creep. It was kind of a sarcastic "I got you" kind of laugh, rather than that, a proper, a belly laugh. It was more kind of ha 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 kind of thing.
Little jerk. All right. Well, that wraps up this month's investigation. Hunting the Haunted returns next month with an all-new case to discuss. Until then, I'm Jason Hewlett.
And I'm Peter Renn. Stay spooky and happy Halloween.